Hi guys, this is Mia from MiMo Design Laser Files. About a month ago I started designing jumping jacks. The first edition were these gingerbread people. All files come in a layered and a single line version, so you can provide the single line version like this, already assembled with paints and perfect for kids to paint. These were painted by my own 4-year-old son. It is definitely possible and also pretty easy to do. The assembling, however, was easy as well, but it wasn't perfect. As a designer that takes great honor in having easy and making easy assembling for you, I had to find some ways to make it easier. The gingerbread people, I started by assembling with a stapler. I scratched that method and went over to layering buttons instead. But I still had an issue because once they are assembled, the legs won't come down unless you hold them upright. I listened to one of my customers who also asked me if I could make these, and I did a little adjustment that will now be the future of the assembling for all my jumping jacks. This tutorial will cover the assembling of all my future variations, and for those who already purchased the Santa gingerbread or gingerbread woman have been recent new founds with this new system. With this new system, you can actually have it flat laying and still be able to have movements. The reason for this is that I added a rubber bands. Let's show you how exactly you assemble these now. When you have cut your file, you will have something that looks like this. You will have a front that is either the scored version or the layered version. If you're choosing the layered version, you'll of course have all the layering, which you just glue on top as prescripted. You will have a back with these rounds on them as well as a scored line. The new version I took my old back will also have an ankle, something like this. These lines are all scored. If you don't know how to score, please check out the blog post that I linked below. You'll also have a set of arms with these engraved marks, a set of legs that also has engraved marks, and you'll have this hanger part. With this hanger part, you'll also have this little one. The old hanger part looked like this. What I made different is this part, because with this you can add the rubber band. Once you have cut these parts, and I do recommend that you cut these from wood because that's easier to paint. You could also do it from MDF or something else. This is 4mm plywood. You will have to make some space for the arms and legs to be able to move. So there's two ways that you can do that. You can either lose these parts and cut this little individual file from figure material. Since I'm using 4mm, which is just a little more than 1/8 inch, I could have cut these parts from 1/4 inch. Instead, I will be using my 4mm and I cut the additional parts from 1/8 inch. If I take my leg here, you might see that when I layer these and I put them on the back, oops, I just lost a leg. You might see how this will create more space between. So I could show you the finished Mrs. Santa, because that's exactly how I did it. This was a prototype, so it doesn't have as pretty a thing up here than the other. But you can see how this will be able to create some distance between the layers for the arms and legs to have more movement. By adding the rubber bands, you can see that when I pull my string, oops, it just loosened, they will go back because of the rubber band. That's a little bit about the materials and the cut file. For assembling, it's really easy. All you need is rubber bands. I use these. These are for, if you're a woman, you probably know these from making small braids. I dropped a link below to these. These rubber bands are 3 millimeters, which is about 1.18 inches in length. And they can actually stretch pretty far without breaking. Also, you will need some string of some sort. I am using this 2 millimeter jute string. You can use any. I've also been using this nylon string, but I actually think that this was a little too smooth. I did have some trouble with my knots loosening, because once you stretch it, you want to make sure that you have some knots that are not capable of moving. Since I use this for my pulling strings anyway, I might as well use them for the assembling. Last but not least, you'll need glue and a scissor to cut the cord. To keep everything in place, I recommend that you use some tape of some sort. I'm just using regular Scotch tape. To assemble, it's really easy. Take your glue. I usually use Loctite, but I don't have any more, so instead I'll be using Gorilla Super Glue, which I actually don't really like because it makes these spider webs, and also it's kind of hard to get out of the bottle. But apply some to the head and also where this inner part will go. Apply some to the rounds here. And to align it really easy, I already made scored marks, and I do advise that you take the thinner material first, because then you can use an arm or a leg to align everything. Let's place these within the scored marks, and you don't have to be totally accurate, but you want to be somewhere in between. For the top parts, you can align it with the edges as well, and just make sure that you are aligning with the bottom scored mark, like this. That's my first layer. To make sure that everything will be aligned perfect, I will just take my arm that is a little thicker, and I'll add a drop of glue to everything again, like that. I will then place the arm, take the other round, and make sure that I can pull off the arm again. If I'm able to pull it off, it is aligned, like that. And for the head, you just align it again to the edge and the hanger part below. I'll just let this dry for 10 seconds and I'll show you how to apply the strings. So as far as the string work goes, I made this little engraved groove to hold the string. In my first tutorials, I did advise that you carve from the back using a sharp knife. Just carve a little V like this. And although this doesn't take long, I actually don't think it is necessary if you have enough space between this, because I do have plenty of space to have my string on the back. So I'll actually not be carving the rest, I'll just apply the string. So for the string, take a nice piece of string, and the length doesn't have to be accurate. Pull it from the back of one arm, and I want to make sure that these knots will not loosen, so I always tie 3 knots, but you can tie as little or as many as you prefer. Just make sure that you tie them really hard so they don't loosen. Once you have the first arm, here's where the tape comes in. So you place the arm, take a piece of tape. These engraved indications should be across from each other. So I'll apply a piece of tape here, and I'll just string the other arm from the back. If you are using jute, be advised that it does split a little, so it can be a little hard to get inside the hole compared to nylon string or whatever. Once you have it on the other end, you just slide the arm to the round. Make sure that it is positioned correct. Hold your string and take a piece of tape and tape this. Now that you have the string, you just go under the middle, and you can take your string and pull it through this loop. Make sure that you tighten it really nice. Again, I'll do this 3 times, so I am sure that my nuts will not come loose. For the legs, it's the exact same thing. Grab a piece of string. I am right-handed. For some reason, I always start with the left, but you could start with the right. That's entirely up to you. And again, I will tie 3 knots. I actually saw that some of my customers are using yarn for this as well. So that's also an option. You can use anything for the inner string, because this will not be visible anyway. I'll place my leg, take a piece of tape, and make sure that this is level. I'll then take the other leg, pull my string from the back, slide it down, place it on the round, and again I'll take a piece of tape. I will tighten the string and I will go under. If you have troubles with coming under, you could use something to lift it. I'll just use my sharp knife here, and you again tie the knots. And for this I also tie 3 knots. Now that you are done with these inner parts, you can take a scissor and trim down the length of the strings. You don't want it to be coming to the sides, but you also don't want to trim it too close to the nuts, because if they loosen, they will loosen. Once you have these, it's time to add the rubber bands and the pulling string. The rubber bands, I'll just grab some of the black ones because they are easier to see. And these are really inexpensive. I dropped a link below for 1,500 of these for about $6. So you could use one, but I really don't want this to fall apart. So I want to make sure I have enough. I'm grabbing 3 rubber bands. I'll remove the tape from the arms like that, and I'll just take my arms up. So you take your rubber band, pull it through the arm, and now you want to add your pulling string. I came across a new little method of making sure that the pulling string between these are really tight. So I will make a little extra length. It's kind of hard to show you how long this is, but again, try your ways. For this, I want to take my pulling string. I actually want to slide it under the arms, and I'll pull it into the rubber bands, and I'll make sure that I tie a knot in the middle of the string that is holding my arms, like this. And I now have my rubber band and pulling string all in one. I will be tying a few more knots, but first I want to place my rubber bands in the groove up here, and I will place my arms again like that. I will grab the long end of my pulling string and I'll just see if I can slide it under, and again I'll pull it through the rubber bands. You don't have to pull them through, but I find that it will give a little additional hold to the rubber bands. Make sure that your knot is tied correctly. And now you want to take the legs with you, so take the string and slide it under the string holding the legs. And this one you want to have really tight. So if you drag it just a little bit down, it will make the rubber bands stretch out, and you make a loop and you then tie it. If I am to remove this now, I can see if it is tight enough. If not, I'll show you how to correct it. Now I have movement with everything, and this string is actually tight enough. If it wasn't, I would grab my string again and I would go under everything once more. I would go under the legs, and I now have this kind of double thing. So if I want it to be tighter, you would have to go under here again and again tie a knot. Make sure that your knots are positioned in the middle, and you see that this is working. So all that's left to do is to trim the rest of your strings, and as long as they are inside, you are safe, and you can now glue on the top. Make sure that you don't get glue stuck to the arms or the legs. You only want to place glue on the rounds and the hanger part. The top you just align to the bagger like this, and once it's completely dry, you can see that it's already ready to go. I do want to add a little bead to the end here. I have these tiny wood beads. I also dropped a link for the wood beads, so you just drag it on the end, and you could tie them like this, but I actually want to have a knot holding the bead, so I will tie one knot, and I'll just tie 2 or 3 knots on top of each other, so they create a knot that is bigger than the hole in the bead, like that. And I can now trim off the excess, and I now have a functioning geometry. So that's it, guys. I will have a lot more designs coming up for these. These all assemble this way. If you have any questions at all, or you have some suggestions for improvements or something else, don't hesitate to send me a message. Don't hesitate to write to me on Etsy, and I'd love to see your review on my file so other people can see if this is easy or not. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you soon.